Hello, this is Lily de Silva, lesson 7. For those of you who are wondering why we're back to the old-fashioned whiteboard, it's because the technology that I'm using has had a major upgrade, but unfortunately the upgrading of the technology moves faster than the upgrading of the ability of my brain to manage it. So pending that being rectified, back to the whiteboard. Right, as before, I shall read through the words slowly and with some comment, if appropriate. So the vocabulary of lesson 7, navika. Now this, you'll see this is cognate with nautical navigation, the Latin navis, ship. So navika, a nautical person. Akasa, sky. Samudra, ocean or sea. That's an interesting word, actually. Samudra in Sanskrit. So samudra in Sanskrit. The sam meaning with, con or co, and udara is actually cognate, right in Latin script, with the Greek hudor and with our English water. So udara, hudor, water, it's all from that same root. So the samudra, in Pali it becomes samudra, is the collection of water, the water gathered together. Deva or Sura, a god. Sura is a particular type of god, a lesser deity, I think. Loka, world. Sakuna, bird. Kaka, crow. Nivasa, house. If you look to the next column, a few words down, vasati, lives. The root vas means to live, or to live in the sense, not be alive, but live in the sense of dwell at a place. So your nivasa, this is literally your indwelling. It's the place you dwell in, your nivasa. Sapurisa, that is from our prefix sat, meaning good or true. As you know, in Sanskrit, satya, truth, and in Pali, satya, as a prefix sat, meaning good, and Sanskrit satpurusha becomes the Pali sapurisa, and then the opposite of that, asapurisa, an ungood man. Kaya, body. Duta, messenger. Gurna, ox or bull. And for the verbs, ahindati, charati, walks. Nisidati, sits. In fact, the root sad, to sit, is cognate with our English sit. There's sad, sidati. It's slightly irregular. Root sad, Sanskrit and Pali together. Present tense sad, sidati. You could put sidati on its own for sits, but it's more common to put nisidati. Originally, nisidati, to insit, just meant to sit down. But the verb nisidati form with the prefix ni is more commonly used. Sannipatati, symbols. Sannipatati, flies in together, or falls into. This is where the pat means both fly and fall. Oddly enough, so sannipatati, falls together. So symbols. Viharati, dwells, and of course we have the vihara, which just means a dwelling place. Vasati, just discussed, lives. Jivati, lives. Now here we see the vasati and jivati together. Jivati more in the sense of lives, is alive as opposed to being dead. Vasati to live in the sense of to dwell somewhere. Where do you live? Tittati stands. This is our Sanskrit root sta. And in Sanskrit, it's a reduplicating verb. That means that the first syllable reduplicates slightly irregularly here because it is tishtati. Tishtati. And in Pali, that becomes tikkati. So he stands. Uppatati. Pat can mean, as I said earlier, oddly enough, both to fly and to fall. Uppatati, therefore, ought to mean to fly up, but the verb is often used just in the sense of flying, not necessarily flying up. Tarati. Tarati, crosses. Crosses as in crossing over a river or something like that. Tarati. Now with our prefix ava, meaning down, it's the ones cognate with our English off, you get from this root avatara. You see our avatar. So the avatara means a crossing down. The idea is the avatar crosses from the a divine realm, crosses down to the human realm as the avatara. So tarati. And then uttarati, literally kind of up crosses, so emerges, comes up from water. And pasidati, becomes glad or is pleased with. Now look back to nisidati, to sit. Prasidati, or pasidati in Pali, prasidati in Sanskrit. It has an interesting meaning. If you are prasidati, the idea is you have let your entire self settle down. You are settled. Prasidati, pasidati. And the idea is then that you are in a state of calm. And then the word extends and extends. So it's got a kind of spiritual sense of a spiritual calmness, as well as just the ordinary being pleased with somebody. So if you're pleased with somebody in the ordinary sense, pasidati, the adjective pasanno, or in the stem form pasanna, so pasanna pasidati from the same root. It means that you are calm, you are settled with him. So what he's done has given you the sense of inner calm rather than being annoyed all the time. You are pasanna, pasidati pasanna. You are calmed, pleased with what somebody has done. Now, in this lesson, we're looking at the locative. Locative, that's where something is located in. Of course, it has a lot of wider meanings. Locative is just the name that we give this case because it's one of the most common meanings for it. Note in particular that in a locative plural, it often means among. For example, devesu, that's the plural. Devesu is not in the gods, but among the gods. And buddhesu, not in the Buddhas, it could be, but normally among the Buddhas. So there are three possible endings for the locative singular in the short a declension. One ends in an e, which is the same as in Sanskrit, and there are two which are in Pali but not in Sanskrit, which would be naramhi or narasmim. and they're used pretty much indiscriminately. There's no distinction of meaning between which one you use. So we have nara, so nare, naramhi, narasmim, matula, matule, matulamhi, matulasmim, and kassaka, kassake, kassakamhi, kassakasmim. So in the plural, we don't have this variety of endings. It's just that one ending. It's the esu ending. Some eshu in Sanskrit, esu in Pali. So naresu, matulesu, and kasakesu. Now looking at the examples in sentence 3, the snake falls on the man. It suggests the snake has been up a tree and has fallen out of the tree. So sappo narasmim patati. The son is pleased with the uncle. Note that to be pleased with somebody or with something, it takes the locative. So putto matulamhi pasidati. The merchant is pleased with the farmer. So varnijo kasakasmim pasidati. And in the plural, sappa naresu patanti, putta matulesu pasidanti, and varnija kassakesu pasidanti. The merchants are pleased with farmers. Now we will do the translations, the Pali to English. I will read it twice in Pali. Try to get it just by reading it. I know you now all have available to you the key to the exercises, which is uploaded onto my Google Drive. But try to get it just as I say it slowly, and then I will explain each sentence as we go along. So number 1, Brahmano sahayakena saddhim ratham hi nisidati. Brahmano sahayakena saddhim ratham hi nisidati. So this means that the Brahmin sits in the chariot with his friend. Note again, just with friend, you'd say in Pali and Sanskrit, you can supply the his if it's obvious, with his friend. Ratamhi, in the chariot, nisidati, sits. Note, we've had several sentences in earlier lessons where somebody coming in a cart or coming or going in a chariot, we've used sakatena or ratena. There's a difference here. Here it's ratamhi nisidati. The emphasis is on where the person is sitting. So locative, just sitting in the chariot. If you're saying he came to the village in a chariot, you would tend to say gamam ratena agachati. Ratena, because you're not so much focusing here on where the person is, but the means by which he is coming. So ratena agachati, he's coming by chariot, because you're focusing on his means of coming. But here we're focusing on where he is located. So the locative ratamhi nisidati. Sentence 2. Asapurisa churehi saha gamesu charanti. Asapurisa churehi saha gamesu charanti. So asapurisa, the ungood men, ungood people. Charanti, move. Here it's not so much movement directly towards, but charanti tends to move around in. So gamesu charanti, they move around or even roam around or move about. So if this meant they go to the villages, it would be game gachanti. Game with the accusative of motion, game accusative plural, game gachanti. But here the locative is gamesu charanti. They're moving around in the villages. Chorehi saha, with thieves. Number 3. Vanijo kassa kassa nivase battam pachati. Vanijo kassa kassa nivase battam pachati. So Vanijo, the merchant, battam pachati, cooks rice, kassa kassa nivase, in the farmer's house, or more specifically, in the farmer's dwelling. The word more specifically meaning a physical house is geha, from Sanskrit griha. But here we aren't talking, that's where you talk about the physical structure of the house. As in house builder, you have been seen. Dittosi gaha karaka, sorry, gaha karaka. Because you have been seen, O house builder. The Buddha there in that victory verse is talking about the physical structure of the house. Here, we're talking not so much about the physical structure of the house, but where he lives. So rather like saying it's somebody's home. So kasakasa nivase, like at the farmer's home. Pachati, cooks, actually cognate with our English word bake. Number 4. Bhupalasa amacha dipesu manusera kanti. Bhupalasa amacha dipesu manusera kanti. So the Bhupalasa amacha, the amacha, the ministers, Bhupalasa of the king, rakanti, protect or guard, manuse, people, can mean men or just people generally. Here, manuse, accusative plural, it's the object of rakanti, so they protect people, dipesu, in the islands or on the islands. Whether you say in the islands or on the islands would depend on context. In Pali, it could be just, it could be either. Sugatassa savaka viharasvim vasanti. So the Sugatassa savaka, the savakas, the disciples, literally hearers. We've had this shravaka in Sanskrit from the root shru, to hear, shravaka, Pali savaka, the hearers, the listeners, therefore the disciples. Sugatassa, of the well gone, sugata, well gone, sugatassa, of the well gone, one of the epithets of the Buddha. So sugatassa savaka, the Buddha's disciples, viharasmim vasanti. So vasanti, live or dwell, viharasmim, in the vihara, which now generally of course means monastery. Makkato rukhamha avartasmim patati. Makkato rukhamha avartasmim patati. So the makkato, the monkey, patati, falls, rukhamha, this is the ablative. It could also be rukha or rukhamha, from the tree, out of the tree, avartasmim, locative, in a pit or into a pit. Suryasa aloko samuddamhi patati. The aloko, the light, suryasa, of the sun. Patati, falls, samuddamhi, on the sea. So the light of the sun falls on the sea. Number 8. Kassakanam gona game ahindanti. Kassakanam gona game ahindanti. That is the farmers in the plural, genitive plural, kassakanam. So kassakanam gona, the farmer's oxen or bulls. Game ahindanti. Ahindanti, wander about or roam. Game, in the village. Number 9. Vejjasadarako manchasvim sayati. Vejjasadarako manchasvim sayati. That means the doctor's child, sayati, sleeps, manchasmim, on the bed. Sayati more specifically means lies down, but is often used to mean sleeps. More accurately would be the farmer's son is lying on the bed. Number 10. Dhivara samuddamha pitake sumache aharanti. So the dhivara, the fishermen, aharanti, are bringing mache, are bringing fish, samuddamha, from the sea, pitakesu, in baskets. Now remember from previous lessons, you could equally well have used the instrumental, pitakehi. They're bringing the fish by baskets, in the sense that they're using the baskets to bring the fish. So you can use the instrumental or the locative here, and it makes no essential difference. I suppose there might be a slight difference of emphasis. If you look at the instrumental, if pitakehi mache aharanti, they are bringing the fish by the means of the baskets. Pitakesu mache aharanti is more the emphasis on where the fish are. They're in the baskets, rather than on the means by which the fish are brought. There's just a slight subtle difference there. Number 11. Siho pasarnasmim tittati makkata rukhesu charanti. Siho pasarnasmim tittati makkata rukhesu charanti. So Siho, the lion, tittati, stands, pasarnasmim, on the rock. Makkata rukhesu charanti. Makkata, the monkeys, charanti, move around. Rukhesu, in the trees, in locative plural, rukka. Number 12. Bhupalassa duto amachena saddin samuddam tarati. Bhupalassa duto amachena saddin samuddam tarati. So Bhupalassa duto, the king's singular messenger. Samuddam tarati, tarati crosses samuddam, the sea. Amachena saddim, with the minister. Number 13. Manusa loke jivante, deva sagge vasanti. Manusa loke jivanti, deva sagge vasanti. So manusa, plural of manusa, men or people generally. Loke jivanti, live in the world. Deva sagge vasanti, the gods live in heaven. Jivanti and vasanti. As I said, normally you'd expect jivati to have the sense more live in the sense of be alive rather than be dead. Vasanti is where you dwell. Here, yes, I would say I approve of the use of the two different verbs here, just for what we call elegant variation, jivanti, vasati. But it could also be translated as not just men dwell on the earth, men. It's more like men or people have their life upon the earth, or people are alive upon the earth. So that it has that slight subtext of where you have your life rather than where you happen to be living at the time. And Sagga, heaven. Sagga actually In Sanskrit, it comes from the Sanskrit swarga. And the swa with this interpolated R, the swa self, going. The interpolated R there, that's from Vedic times, I won't bother with the details there. The swarga is the self going. It's where the self naturally belongs or naturally wants to be. That's the word, that's how they express heaven, the after-death heaven. And by standard phonetic notation, of course, swarga simply becomes sagga. But that's the history behind it. Number 14. Miga pabbate sudhavanti sakuna akase uppatanti. Miga pabbate sudhavanti sakuna akase uppatanti. So miga, that's deer. Dhavanti, run. Pabbatesu, either in the mountains, on the mountains, or among the mountains. It could be any of those things, just the general locative plural. Sakuna akase uppatanti. And birds, uppatanti, fly up or just fly, akase, in the sky. Note this akasa, often in Sanskrit akasha, is often used to mean sky. It actually also means space, just not outer space, but just space generally. Number 15. Amacho khaggam bhupalasa hattamha adadati. So the amacho, the minister, adadati. You could also say adiyati. Da to give, ada to take. It's adadati. Before I mentioned this reduplicated verb tittati from ta, Sanskrit root sta, tishtati, tittati. Da is a similar verb. So the root, let's do this in red for the Sanskrit Vedic. So da, and it's actually, sorry, Sanskrit dadati. Now in Pali, let's now take the a. So in Pali, you can have two forms. One exactly follows the Sanskrit. So to take adadati. Or you can have another form which is exclusively Pali, is not found in Sanskrit, is adiyati. I think adiyati is probably more common. And when in reciting the precepts, for example, accepting the training precepts, you say adinadana veramani sikkapadam samadhiyami, not samadadami, but samadhiyami. Samadhadami would be linguistically correct, but the formula that we recite is samadhiyami with the iya form, so I say, which doesn't exist in this form in Sanskrit. It's exclusive to Pali. So amacho khaggam bhupalasahatam ha adadati. The minister takes the bhupalasa khaggam, the king's sword. I'm sorry. The minister khaggam adadati takes the sword bhupalasa hattamha, from the king's hand. Number 16. Acharyo matulassa nivase manchamhi puttena saha nisidati. So Acharyo, the teacher, Acharyo, by the way, because of the phonetics of Thai, it's this Acharyo becomes Ajan in Thai. So when we talk about Ajan so-and-so, it means teacher from this same word, Acharyo. So Acharyo, the teacher, Nisidati is sitting, Manchamhi, on the bed. Matulassa Nivase, at the uncle's house, at the uncle's residence. Puttena Saha, with his son. Tapasa, number 17, Tapasa Pabbatamhi Viharanti. Tapasa Pabbatamhi Viharanti. So the Tapasa, the ascetics, Viharanti, dwell, live, Pabbatamhi, on the mountain. Number 18, Upasaka Samanehi Siddhim Vihare Sannipatanti. Upasaka Samanehi Siddhim Vihare Sannipatanti. So the Upasaka, the disciples or the lay devotees, Sannipatanti, which fall together or assemble, come together. Vihare, in the monastery, Samanehi Siddhim, with the monks. Number 19, Kaka Rukkehi Uppatanti. Kaka, the crows, Uppatanti are flying or flying up. Rukkehi. Note here, it's the ablative from trees. If they were flying in the trees, it would be Rukkesu Uppatanti. It is Rukkehi Uppatanti, flying from the trees. Number 20, Buddho Dhammam Bhasati, Sappurisa Buddhamhi Pasidanti. Buddho Bhasati, the Buddha speaks Dhamma. The Buddha speaks the truth or speaks the doctrine, just tells the Dhamma. Sappurisa Buddhamhi Pasidanti, and good men are pleased or delighted. Pasidanti, Buddhamhi, remember again, pasidati, with the locative of what you're pleased with. So good men are pleased with the Buddha. Sappurisa Buddhamhi Pasidanti. Number 21. Asappiriso Kagena Navikasadutam Paharati. So the Asappuriso, the ungood man, the wicked man. Paharati strikes. Navikasadutam, the sailor's messenger. Kagena, instrumental, with a sword. Number 22. Puriso Sarena Sakunam Vijhati. Sakuno Rukamha Avartasmim Patati. So Puriso, the man, Vijhati, shoots. Actually, the original meaning, the root meaning of Vij means to pierce. So you pierce with an arrow, basically. You shoot with an arrow. So Puriso, Vijhati, shoots. Sakunam, a bird. Sarena, with an arrow. Sakuno, the bird. Patati, falls. Avartasmim, in a pit or into a pit. Rukamha, out of a tree. So the Puriso Serena Sakunam Vijhati, the man shoots a bird with an arrow, and the bird falls Rukamha, out of a tree, Avartasmim, into a pit. Number 23. Manusa Suryasa Alokena Lokam Passanti. So Manusa, people, lokam passanti, see the world, suryasa alokena, alokena, instrumental, by the light, suryasa alokena, by the light of the sun. Number 24. Kasakasagona magge sayanti. So the say it again, sorry. Kasakasagona magge sayanti. The farmer's oxen or bulls, sayanti, are either lying down or are asleep, magge, in the road. And the road, as we know, this magga, can have a literal and a figurative meaning. In this sentence, of course, it's literal. It's where the oxen are lying down. It's from the Sanskrit word marga, a road, and it's in Pali it becomes the magga. Both in Sanskrit and in Pali, physically, literally a road, it also means a path or a way of doing something. So that we have the Noble Eightfold Path. The Eightfold Path is the Attangiko Maggo. That's the Atta Angiko, the eight-limbed, that's eightfold, the eight-limbed Maggo, the Eightfold Path. Number 25. Go nasakayasmin gako tittati. Tittati, this reduplicated verb again, Sanskrit sta tishtati, Pali tittati. So, gako, a crow, tittati is standing, go nasakayasmim, on the bull's body. Number 26. Mega deepasmim pasarnesu nisidanti. So, mega, deer in the plural, mega nisidanti, deer sit, pasarnesu, on rocks, deepasmim, on the island. So deer are sitting on rocks on the island, mega deepasmim pasarnesu nisidanti. Number 27. Sakuno navikassahattamha avartasmim patati. Sakuno navikassahattamha avartasmim patati. That means the bird, patati, falls, hattamha, from the hand, navikassahattamha, from or out of the sailor's hand, avartasmim, into a pit. Number 28. Sappuriso navikena saha samuddamha uttarati. Sappuriso navikena saha samuddamha uttarati. So Sappuriso, the good man, uttarati, from a body of water, from a sea, from a lake, just emerging from it. In Sanskrit and Pali, it's expressed as crossing up from it. Uttarati. So the Sappuriso, Samuddamha Uttarati, emerges from or comes out of the sea, Navikena Saha, with the sailor. Number 29. Kuddalo Luddakashattamha avartasmim patati. The kuddalo, the spade, Silva translated as hoe. In fact, it's a spade, kuddalo, the spade. Patati, falls, hattamha, out of the hand, luddakassa, hattamha, out of the hunter's hand, avartasmim, into a pit. So kudalo ludikasahatamha, avartasmim patati. Number 30, suryassa alokena chando bhasati. Suryassa alokena chando bhasati. So chando is the moon. In Sanskrit, Chandra, Pali Chanda. Bhasati, shines. Note that there's an ambiguity. This root is, it's two roots. The ambiguity is in the Pali, not the Sanskrit. The root Bhash, sh, Bhash, to speak. And the root Bhas, that's separate in Sanskrit, Vedic. Bhas is to shine. Because Pali doesn't have a sh or a sh, it lacks them both, they will become a just ordinary s, so both become bhas. So bhasati speaks, bhasati shines in Pali, distinct in Sanskrit, bhashati, bhasati. You just have to tell by context which one it is. So here obviously shines. So Chando, the moon, bhasati shines, suryasa alokena, by the light of the sun. I'll read through the sentences again. Before I do so, I think I may have misled you accidentally by a slip of the tongue earlier about water. Udara in Sanskrit actually means belly. It's udra. Can't quite remember what I said. Udra is water. So samudra, it's in Sanskrit, is the sum, the collection coming together. Samudra, a collection of water, therefore the sea, and it's that's becomes samudra in Pali. And so this is the same. Udra, the Greek hudor. But we get the dehydrate. If you've lost your hudor, you've lost water. Your water level's low, and cognate still with English water. Right. So what I'll do, as before, I will read through all these sentences slowly. You have the translation, of course, in your key. But try just to follow by listening only, or looking at it in the Pali, or preferably just by listening only, to see if you can make sense of these sentences as I speak. Brahmano sahayakena saddhim rattamhi nisidati. Asapurisa churehi saha gamesu charanti. Vanijo kasakasya nivase bhattam pachati. Bhupalas amacha dipesu manuse rakhanti. Sugatassa savaka viharasmim vasanti. Makkato rukkamaha avartasmim patati. Suryasa aloko samuddamhi patati. Kasakanangona game ahindanti. Vijjasadarako manchasim sayati. Sorry, sayati, the short say. I'll read that again. Vijjasadarako manchasim sayati. Dhivara samuddamha pitakesu mache aharanti. Siho pasanasmin tittati makkata रुक्खेषु चरन्ति भूपालस्य दूतो अमच्चेन सद्धिं समुद्रं तरति मनुष्या लोके जीवन्ति देवा सज्ञे वसन्ति मिगा पब्बतेषु धावन्ति सकुना आकाशे उत्पतन्ति अमच्चो खड्गं भूपालस्य हत्तमहा आददाति आचार्यो मातुलस्य निवासे मञ्चमे पुत्तेन सह निसीदति तापसा पब्बतं हि विहरन्ति उपासका समणैः सद्धिं विहारे सन्निपतन्ति काका रुक्षैः उत्पतन्ति बुद्धो धम्मं भासते सत्पुरुषा बुद्धं हि पश्यन्ति असत्पुरुषो खड्गेन नाविकस्य दूतं पारति पुरुषो सरेण शकुनं विज्झति शकुनो रुक्खमः अवाटस्मिन् पतति मनुष्या सूर्यस्य आलोकेन लोकं पश्यन्ति कस्य कस्य गोना मग्गे शयन्ति गोणस्य कायस्मिन् काको तिष्ठति मिगा दीपस्मिन् पाषाणेषु निसीदन्ति शकुनो नाविकस्य हत्तमः आवाटस्मिन् पतति सत्पुरुषो नाविकेन सह समुद्रमः उत्तरति कुद्दालो लुद्धकस्य हत्तमः आवाटस्मिन् पतति सूर्यस्य आलोकेन चन्दो भासति. And that concludes Lily de Silva, Lesson 7.